I will call the Board of Selectmen's June 10th, 2024 meeting to order. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded. Jason, I'm going to have you come up to the microphone for me. I'm going to take our agenda a little bit out of order just to try to get people cycled through the room. On our agenda this evening, we have a request to consider amending the name on the Class 2 license and change it from Lakeside Auto to Lakeside Auto LLC and sign the new license. Do you want to just give us a little brief update of what happened and why we're signing a new license?
Yes. I probably didn't think it through thoroughly. It was in about a month ago, got the license. You guys awarded me the license. Speaking with my personal attorney and my accountant, they suggested that I set the company up as a limited liability corp instead of a sole proprietor. So I've been going through that process. The last thing I need is to have this changed.
Wonderful. So it's all set up at this point. You just need our signature.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody from the board have any questions for Jason about the change to a LLC?
Nope.
No? All right. I will entertain a motion to approve the request to change the name from Lakeside Auto to Lakeside Auto LLC.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
You're all set, sir. You can meet with Pam to pick that license up anytime after tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. Bear with me. I'm taking a couple of things out of order so we can move this along. Joan, are you picking me up? Yes. You're getting my volume? Okay.
Please,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm looking for the fire lane at Canomo Point. Do you know where that was?
Business and...
Oh, I do have it. Sorry, page 5. So I'm going to bring the board's attention to page 5 of our agenda. It says Canomo Point Commissioners. So the first item on the agenda under Canomo Point Commissioners is to consider the status of a fire lane property on Canomo Point, which is lot 64, and the possible erection of a no parking sign. So we were all provided in an email. We received the GIS overview of the parcel in question. So what happened was there was a visitor visiting the property at,
in the agenda.
I believe it's 130 Canomo Point Road. Peter. The owners of 130 Canomo Point Road had a visitor. The visitor was parked on town-owned land that's identified as a fire lane. The neighbors asked that vehicle to be moved. The town of Essex Police Department were called, and they were unaware that this was a fire lane. So I had reached out to the fire chief and the deputy chief for a discussion about this, and in fact, it is a fire lane that they want to keep open. They've actually identified that they've used this fire lane twice in the last few years to bring trucks through that property. So the question before the board this evening is how we want to identify that so that people are aware that there should be no parking on that land and that it needs to be available for fire trucks to come through there in an emergency.
So I believe I heard that they were going to try it out. Was there any issue going through there? I mean, because it is beautiful, lovely grass.
So there's no issue going through there. I mean, in the case that something's on fire and they need to get a truck through there, I don't think it matters whether the grass is soft, wet, hard. They're going to get the truck through there.
Okay.
The rock is not a factor.
The rock was not a factor. They actually brought a truck down there to bring it through, and the rock is not a factor. So they can make the swing. The outcropping of rocks is tall, but it's fine because they have all of the area to swing. And they also did say that the swing left onto Middle Road from the fire lane is actually easier off that property, believe it or not, than it is out of the parking lot, because coming out of the parking lot, it's a really tight, and one of the residents that lives down there actually parks in the parking lot as their regular parking spot, and they park almost 2 wheels on the road, 2 wheels in the parking lot, so it makes that swing even more difficult. So they do want to keep this clear. It is a designated fire lane.
Is
and-
it a problem other than just this resident using it as sort of like overflow parking for his guests or whatever? Or is it chronically being used by others in the area?
So this is, as we know, we only find out about things when they become a problem and we get a complaint. So I've not heard that this has been a chronic problem. I think this is maybe a one-time thing. But regardless of that, we need to make sure it's clear for an
Well,
emergency.
plus when the police came out recently for a particular incident, they were unsure as to what the status of the parcel is, because it doesn't say fire lane, no parking.
Right.
They knew it was town property, but it's not helpful to them to not know.
Yeah.
And so if the board, is in agreement with the fire department on this, we could have no parking fire lane signs on either end of this thing with arrows.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. It is, was noted that it's a really pretty piece of property, and you don't want to have signs all over it, so if it could be something that was somewhat subdued, but still obvious.
Do the best we can.
You can have that.
So that's how the board wants to handle it.
I think that's the best way to handle it.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to have no parking fire lane signs made for the parcel to be identified at 130 Canomo Point Road.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Just for the board's knowledge, our 6:15 appointment has been tabled till June 24th, so we can get more information, so we will not be hearing that this evening. So I'm going to have Town Administrator Zubricki go back to the beginning of the agenda and do his report.
You don't want to just finish up Canomo Point since we're on it?
Table to, when's our next meeting? The
24th.
24th?
We can. Alva, if you want to stay there and finish that. So we have a request to transfer the lease interest for 17 Middle Road held by Elizabeth and Jan DeVries into their trust. I have
What does that mean when it gets transferred into a trust?
It just means that the form that the property interest is held in is not in a name personal. It's in an organization, if you will. There are individuals that are part of that, but it's just a form of holding of the property interest. It's different than an individual.
And it protects them from suits and stuff like that. That's primarily why people do that.
Right, and when people die,
Yeah.
you need to have a trust, so that's why they're doing it.
Thank you.
So, as is the norm, we have a very specific language about doing these transfers. So, I will entertain a motion to approve a written request for the transfer of Elizabeth B. DeVries and Jan C. DeVries' interest in the leasehold for the property at 17 Middle Road, map 108, lot 55, for Elizabeth B. DeVries and Jan C. DeVries to the Dutch Treat Trust, Elizabeth B. DeVries and Jan C. DeVries trustees, and further, that nothing in this approval is intended to convey or imply any right, title, or interest in the subject property or any portion thereof that was not already held by Elizabeth B. DeVries and Jan C. DeVries.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. And finally, we have a request before us this evening from Joan Herman to temporarily allow habitation in a recreational vehicle on her leased property at 172 Canomo Point Road. So as the board is aware, we received an email just outlining that a resident of Canomo Point was hoping to park a recreational vehicle on her property for approximately a week to, I believe it was a week to 10 days. Let me find my email. 5 to 7
5 to
days.
7, yeah.
Yes. Sometime between August to maybe mid-September. The purposes are outlined in the email. It was going to be 2 female occupants, and they identify that there will be no cooking, no bathroom use, maybe some sleeping. Most of the time will be spent in the year-round home, and it would be just basically parked there. So I know that Town Administrator Zubricki actually had a verbal conversation with the person who made this request. I don't know if there's anything other than what was in the
Well,
email.
we got an update to say that it will be for parking only, not habitation of any sort. She indicates they'll be staying in her guest room in the house, using the bathroom facilities in the house, and cooking in the kitchen in the house. The reason that this recreational vehicle is coming to the area is because that's these 2 people's only mode of transportation. So it's how they're getting there. It's not where they're staying once they get there.
So it's just, they're just gonna, they're parking it,
The parking.
yeah.
And it's important, though, that the board review it because the lease is very specific about how the board can determine whether other uses are allowable. If you're going to approve it, I would recommend that you underscore in your vote that it cannot be connected to the wastewater system for the house. It cannot be connected to the water system for the house, and that no one can sleep in it.
And do we know how big this is? Did they give us dimensions?
They did not give
They did not.
dimensions.
And will it make it down to Canomo Point Road?
That's my understanding, it will, yes. And the tenant says that she has a driveway large enough to accommodate 9 cars. So there will be no problems, is what she said. It will be completely onto her leased property.
I think for me, one of the big issues that I have is that we had a camper come before us just a year ago where somebody had a camper trailer parked in their yard, and I realized that that parcel was not for habitation. This one is. But it's the same, for me, if you take the names and any sort of personal information from this email that pull at your heartstrings and you eliminate that and you just look at it from a recreational vehicle and a driveway standpoint, you could set up a precedent where now each house down at Canomo Point requests 1 week at a time where are they Airbnb-ing it? Are they going to say that no one's sleeping in it or cooking in it or whatever? But then we have no enforcement. So who's driving around Canomo Point to make sure that no one is actually in this recreational vehicle? And maybe not this one time. I mean, I trust that what is being said is honest. But
Point is good, yeah.
this board sets that precedent. We know that every time somebody comes before us, they say, well, you did it for fill in the blank. And again, while this email tugs at the heartstrings and makes you want to say yes, I think we need to be careful about what that vote looks like, because if we do say yes, just realize that you're going to have a line at your door waiting for recreational vehicles for a week at a time, or they're going to say, well, you let it sit there and you didn't have some restriction, and it could be that everyone starts to Airbnb something down there because it's beautiful and they all want a view. And the next thing you know, you're obstructing. We have people that are down there for the view, and you have an RV in front of them on the property, and now they don't have that view. I realize that we're not the view police, but it could be a concern. So I caution us on how we proceed with this request.
It's a good point. And like you said, we have no enforcement. So are you and I going to be driving around Canomo Point on a evening basis to see if there's lights on? It's hard.
Well, and you and I both know that that's exactly what we do, and we can't be everywhere at once. We have enough things that we do police.
There's gotta be a way around it somehow, that this type of use could be done, and what you're fearing can't be. I mean, we could structure something that way to,
What I would recommend,
it is.
so there's a place in town that belongs to a group called the Boondockers, and they allow RVs to park on their property, their commercial property, for free, and they can stay as long as they want. That's one opportunity. And we also have a marina that during the summer months, they allow parking in the back of their site for a fee. So I think that, you know, if this was, they are really passionate about coming to Essex and wanting to park their vehicle somewhere for 5 to 7 days, they could pay a fee to do that. That's not at Canoma Point. And then they could sleep in the house and cook in the house and use the restroom in the house like they're saying. So it could go some. What about the other thing is, what about the opportunity, maybe they could park it in the municipal lot? I don't know if that's,
No
there's
overnight
no overnight
parking in the
parking,
municipal
so they
lot.
can't do that.
Is there non-resident parking at Canoma Point?
There is non-resident parking at Canoma Point at the sign when you come down Canoma Point
Right,
Road on the
along
right,
edge, yeah.
Between the two signs,
between the
yes.
two signs. So that could be another option.
Hmm. Yeah, because if they're not using it to sleep in or anything, then they don't need it. And they're certainly not gonna be using it to drive around town.
Well, they would if that's the only vehicle they have.
Well, no, but they're coming and visiting people, so hopefully they're visiting and transporting with those people, not their RV, maybe.
I don't know how big it is. I don't know how drivable. I don't know how easy to navigate. But if they were to arrive at Canoma Point and get there early in the morning or later in the day, they could certainly get a non-resident spot on the road and leave it there. I mean, I don't know. I think you're just setting up a bad precedent. For me, I take out all the personal emotions and I just say that it's setting a bad precedent. And I think that in the future, we're
Right,
gonna
it
have a
is.
problem.
You're right, it definitely
So.
is setting a bad precedent.
It's a lot more proximal to the property if they do find a non-resident spot. It's not that far away.
Right, than to go down to, you know, one of the marinas or Ernie's or whoever
Right.
allows that. Yeah.
So the sense I'm getting is it seems as though, I mean, I'm feeling like we're not in favor, so I'm going to entertain a motion to deny the request from Joan Herman to temporarily allow habitation in a recreational vehicle on her leased property at 172 Canoma Point Road.
She's not asking for you to allow habitation. That's
okay.
how the agenda was written, but then she got back to us saying
said-
that it's not for habitation. So it's just,
So just to park it on the
Right.
property. So I'll amend my motion to say to allow parking of the recreational vehicle on the property.
To allow it.
To not allow it. That was her request, and I'm making a motion to deny that request.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
But BZ, you will give her the other options that,
yep, I'll
Okay.
suggest those things.
Okay. Town administrators report?
So we went back out to bid for the public water wells, supply well improvement project. So this is the second time now. And once again, even though the scope was narrowed, the bid, we got a single bid this time, came in higher than the available budget. So, at this point in time, I wanted to inform the board of that and let you know that the engineer is going to be studying what our options are. He's going to look at whether there's a way to take anything out of the, any part of the scope off of the contract because of the way the bid was written. And if there is, maybe we fit within it. If there's not, then we do have a chance to go back out to bid for a third time because we don't have to obligate the federal funds until the end of the calendar year.
Does that just means obligate, no?
Obligate.
Okay,
I checked on it.
yeah.
And so we'll have a chance to do it again, but it's going to have to be narrowed again. So I think basically the engineer right now is away, I think at his daughter's wedding. He will be reviewing this, and I'll have more information for the next meeting.
Hopefully, we're not just chasing inflation,
I know.
exactly, that's what my concern is.
you know?
We're being told increasingly that a job that's $1 million or a little less than $1 million is actually a small job these days.
No.
This is why we're not seeing
Right.
a wide variety of bidders.
And there's no possibility of funding from elsewhere to help with this, correct?
That's right. This is a federal grant, so we have that money, and then the other money we have for this purpose is all committed to the water plant through the state revolving loan fund. And we don't have a town meeting appropriation that could be used to augment this. You would have to wait, either have a special town meeting or wait until November. But let's at least see what the engineer's recommendation is for your next meeting, and then you can look at other options.
And when you say to the end of the year, end of this fiscal year or end of December?
The end of the calendar year is when we have to have the money obligated by, which is going to give us another chance to bid, if that's the recommendation.
Great, that's what I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because the money has to be spent. We certainly don't want to lose it. An update now on the Essex River dredging project. We did have a chance to hear from Congressman Moulton about the project. He reiterated how he and others got an additional $1 million to put toward the project, and how the Army Corps really isn't looking to do a second mobilization here. So all agreed that the best solution would be to work with the permitting agencies to try to make the window during which the dredging can be done a little bit larger. And if that can be done, and we're in the process now of finding out how long the private consultant for the marinas thinks that it will take for the marina work to be done. If that's just a few weeks, we may be able to get that window
We
open.
haven't gotten any information.
We have not as yet.
And also that Senator Tarr and Moulton were saying to get together again as a group. Has that happened?
Yes, so they have scheduled a meeting on July 2nd, and Peter is going to come and attend because it's not a public meeting.
July 8th.
July 2nd is the Coastal Coalition, July 8th, which I actually have it here in my report. So that's the update, and we're hopeful that we can get that permitting window extension once we have more information. And I think we will have that information to discuss on the 8th. We'll have it by then, so we'll be able to come back to the board with another update. Now, with respect to the Centennial Grove camera system, we were looking at putting cameras on the two buildings where fiber optic, which connects us back to the town network, currently goes into. If you remember, we did a fiber optic extension that went into the Grove Cottage and into the concession stand at the other area of the Grove by the pavilion. We were looking to perhaps trench from those buildings to put cameras on the garage and on the new pavilion. But after going out there with a contractor, it does not look like trenching in that very shallow to bedrock environment is going to work. So on the Centennial Grove end of the equation, I've gotten a new quote just to put cameras on the two buildings that already have fiber, as well as a camera on the pole that's outside of the concession stand, and that should be a good start. We can look at expanding it at some point in the future, especially since they're going to need to feed power to the pavilion at some point, and that may need to be done with overhead. And if that's the case, we can string additional cable to that.
So when we're saying down the road a bit, when are we talking? I mean, because I'm concerned that it's really, as things keep moving along, it gets better and better, and I want to make sure that it's protected and that it's.
Well, the point is to get cameras up that are going to be facing that new pavilion and eventually the new restroom from the area that we have the point of presence in, okay, right away. We
Yeah,
can
you'll-
expand the system later, but I don't have any way to do it right now. There's no way to get there.
You won't see details of what's going on in there.
We're
but
going to have
you'll
pretty
see-
good cameras
you'll-
that can
you'll see
zoom, but,
what's- you'll-
yeah.
You'll see there's activity.
Yeah, and you'll be able to say that the area is being monitored, and you'll be able to
Yeah.
put up little signs that say, this area is being monitored,
Yeah.
because it will be a true statement. Now, on the other end of the equation, which is the server end of the equation, we did some due diligence, on the trenching. That's not going to work. We also did some due diligence on replacing the camera server. And we have found through the existing vendor that the camera platform is what they call fully integrated with the platform for door access within the building, police and fire facility. So what we're hearing from them is, okay, well, you can have a contractor come in, but it's going to be difficult for that contractor to extricate the two systems from each other, right? So one option I think we have is to bring in the vendor that has much more favorable pricing, Okers, and they're on the state contract, and pay them a small amount of money to come in and actually review, go into the system. Okay, this is what we've got, folks. Is this something you can really do? Before we go and enter into a contract. Because I don't want to have cameras put up and somebody mobilize and have software upgrade and server change started, and then they find it, now we're going to spend X amount of money on the other vendor.
Yeah.
So I want to get all of the credentials from the other vendor on getting into switches, servers, everything. Have the vendor with favorable pricing come out and just look at it right on site, tell us, yep, we got this, or no, you know what, we got a problem, before I go forward with this.
What's the, I'm assuming that we're in a contract with the existing vendor?
We have a contract with them only for the annual maintenance of the door access system. The camera system, that vendor is the one that has been called, but it's on a per issue basis.
So there's no contract?
There's no
with us?
contract
No
that says we're using them for X amount of years?
There is not.
Oh,
But as you can probably guess or imagine, they know that they're not going to get the continued camera work, so they're being kind of cagey about the situation, which is why I just want to bring the other vendor in and say, here it is.
Yeah.
You can look at the hardware, you can go right into the switches and into the servers, and you can tell me whether you can handle this for that price.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I can come up with right now.
That makes sense.
Otherwise, we could find ourselves again in the lurch, and I don't want to be there, so. So that's what I'll do, and I'll report back on that.
Were there any other questions from the town administrator's report itself? Those were the three items he reported out on, but no other questions? No? Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the weekly warrant in the amount of $617,559.01.
second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the Selectmen's May 20th, 2024 open meeting.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to ratify the board's award of contract to Axon Enterprise, Inc. for the provision of new tasers for the police department in the amount of $48,738.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to ratify the town administrator's signature of a Chapter 44, Section 33B transfer request in the amount of $2,175 from town custodian to town property.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to ratify the town administrator's signature of a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $175 to personnel board expense account.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to consider a request from the town clerk to approve a request to the Finance Committee to approve a Chapter 44, Section 33B transfer as follows. $1,039.18 to election expenses from election wages, $1,723 from two registrars. I don't know what PRTG is. Printing, from registrar's supplies, $243 to the copy machine budget from registrar supplies, $53 to the office supplies line from registrar supplies, and $1,000 to the election expenses from registrar supplies.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to consider a request from Kim Trainer of the Neurofibromatosis Northeast to hold their 13th annual Coast to Cure bike ride on Saturday, September 7th, 2024, starting at 7 a.m. from Gloucester.
What is the route?
Yep, I have the map. The map is out. Oh, there it is.
Is it Ipswich or Newburyport?
Trying to see, Essex makes a loop around. And where's goes up 133 again, this is the causeway. So it goes Apple Street?
Does
Is
look
that what it is? It goes Apple Street?
That map looks like the same route that they do every year, which does go up Apple Street.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So then probably back down to Manchester.
Yeah, what time
127.
is it over? Or what time are they through Essex?
They start
Depends
at
on the riders.
Yeah, it depends on the riders. I mean, 7 a.m. from Gloucester, they're probably through Essex by 10 a.m. at the latest.
Yeah. So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
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 Now, Essex doesn't have to do anything except maybe inform the police, is that correct? To let them know that this is
Usually the race,
So have their own people.
they have,
Yeah.
right, and they'll contact the police, fire, ambulance. They do that in each community that they're going to race in, so the race organizers would be doing that in the DPW, so they contact everybody. Next on our agenda, BZ, is to consider the status of the Shellfish Constable truck.
Yep, so we still have not heard back from the state that there's a suitable surplus vehicle. We've been, asking, I've followed up several times now, and they said, well, we're keeping our eye out, but we don't have anything. The truck is being driven, but we're getting to the end of that 60-day grace period, and my question is whether you just want to have it fixed, and then we'll continue maybe for the fall town meeting to look for that surplus vehicle.
What year is this vehicle?
It's a 2012,
How much was it to fix? Wasn't it like a couple grand?
$3,400.
400, yeah.
I say, yeah, fix it.
Because remember, we got this vehicle when they were still providing vehicles at no charge.
Right. It's a free vehicle.
So it hasn't cost the town anything yet, and we've had it since 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is the one to replace the one that was lost in the flooding.
That's correct, but now it itself is having some
Right.
trouble, so.
Peter, do you have any reason why you wouldn't go with just fix it?
I'd say fix it.
Okay,
yeah.
so I will entertain a motion to approve the repair of the Shellfish Constable's truck.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Does he have a alternate while it's being fixed? Because that's, or while
Isn't it
it's
his
now?
personal? He's been,
He would use his personal.
and the Shellfish Constable truck doesn't actually have, it can be for towing, but it doesn't, it's not a daily thing that he uses it for towing.
Not
correct?
daily, no.
Okay.
Next on our agenda is to review a proposal from the planning board to include an insert in the next town tax bill mailer. So the email came out from the planning board email, just requesting that we allow them to put a 1/3 card stock mailer in with our tax bill. It's steps 1 through 4 that just talks about the survey, about creating maps, workshops to gather responses on the maps, about the public hearing to refine and finalize maps, and then step 4, which is to present the articles at the special fall town meeting in November. There's a QR code in the upper left corner of each one, and that will allow them to take a snapshot and just be able to do this all online. The cost is minimal. It's the total cost from the one that we allowed the finance committee to do, which was the, if everybody recalls that they had like an in-person finance committee 101. And this is the same type of thing. So the finance committee cost was $172. The estimated budget for this is between $175 and $200, and the planning board does currently have that money in their budget still existing.
You know, my only issue was that to make it more relevant and maybe more useful is to have whatever hard dates in it you can have in there so that people can plan, like, you might not be able to step 4, but maybe step 2 you would have.
I can tell you this, they're gonna need to turn this in tomorrow in order to make the mailer.
And they don't know the dates of.
We do have the dates. Actually, if you snap that QR code, it will take you to the planning board website, and there is a really nicely done calendar with all of the dates. They've already been identified at the planning board level, and on their homepage, that QR code will bring you there with hard dates.
Would it be worth putting them in here? I know it's.
I don't know if you can fit it in there, that's the plus they,
Well, instead of May, June, or July, August, we put the date in.
I think there's multiple dates.
Well, there's multiple dates.
Oh,
They're
okay.
doing it, so the way that Lisa has it structured is like, in July, for instance, she's doing 4 days in a row for several weeks in a row. So she'll do, on one week it will be Monday, the next week a Tuesday, the next week a Wednesday.
A lot of information to fit in there.
Right, and she's trying to capture people that work different days and different times, so it would be a lot.
So that people will scan the QR code, and not just, if there's a date, they might write it down.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, it is, that's a thought, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Or, not everybody knows how to use a QR code. That's the concern.
I guess what I would say, since I do go to the planning board meetings, is that there's been a lot of thought put into this and a lot of feedback from the planning board members. And after a lot of consideration and working really diligently through the calendar process with tons of feedback on how to do this, the surveys and the workshops and who's going to be there and the mapping that they've undertaken, I think that they put a lot of thought into this, and
This is where they're at.
this is where they're at.
Yeah,
I would say
okay.
far be it from us to stop this
Sure,
because they need it,
sure.
and tomorrow's the deadline.
No, I have no problem, I'm not going to try and stop it, but they do need to think about further. So whether it be in the Council on Aging's calendar that they send out or something so that,
They are hoping to, so other forms of advertisement to get interest, they want to use signboards
Yeah,
that the police
yeah.
will deploy. They are going to get it onto the senior center calendar, and they're actually going to hang little flyers up at the dump, the town clerk's office, the post office. So they do have a plan and
Okay.
different members that are going to execute that.
Good.
So is there,
They've done a lot of work. for
they've done a lot
sure.
of work.
Yeah.
Does somebody want to move my motion? Or entertaining my motion to approve the planning board insert?
Yeah, so moved.
second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. We're going to table, or should we table the next item since I don't have a number, or
You
does
don't
that
have to
matter?
have a number, as
Okay.
long as you talk about the parameters, if there's a minimum that you'd like to see or whatever.
Okay.
It's really just the board authorizing
The
that
disposal
form of
it.
disposal.
Okay. So next on our agenda is to consider the sale of the old Essex Fire Department ladder truck to the city of Beverly. Our ladder truck, although we needed to replace it because it has maintenance, mechanical issues, it's kind of a unicorn. We had that custom built because of the size of our old station. And it doesn't fit into many departments or many doors. We actually had to have our doors retrofit just to get that one in, and that was a unique truck. So the Beverly Fire Chief reached out to the Essex Fire Chief and said, "We would love to buy your truck from you." He said, "Well, let me look into the process." So I reached out to Town Administrator Zubricki, who, because it's an intermunicipal exchange, we have the ability to, instead of doing sealed bids and putting it out for sale, we have that opportunity. So they did send down their mechanic, what's today, Monday? The mechanics from Beverly came down on Friday. They were at the department for several hours going over the truck, and they are interested. However, they've asked the fire chief if they could take the truck back to Beverly and get it up on lifts this week and then come back with a number. So we're a little bit in limbo, which is why I was talking about the possibility of tabling it. But if we don't have to and we know what the goal is or what's happening, I guess we can vote to allow the fire chief and the town administrator to work on the proper process for disposal if the board is fine with that.
Do they have a department with the undersized doors or something that they need this?
So they have 3 firehouses. They have the
Right.
Beverly Farms Station, the downtown station, and then the North Beverly.
Yeah.
Right now, my understanding is that they could use a backup truck for the time being. Once they do all the repairs needed to make it an appropriate truck, they actually want to make it a regional asset, and they want to be able to make it a loaner truck. So whether it goes to a particular location, right now they're feeling like they have the ability to house it. So, in talking to the fire chief, he's like, it would be fabulous if we could keep it in Essex and house it and make it a regional asset. So when Manchester didn't have a ladder, we could have sent it there, or if, Linfield needed it, we could send it there. But we don't have the space to house it where Beverly does. So their goal is to buy it from us for probably not a lot of money and use it for the time they need it, and then to make it a regional asset so that it doesn't, because they know it was well cared for. I mean, we've had it for a long time and we did maintain it, even though it has mechanical issues at this point. So that's what I know.
Good.
Do we,
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
so I will entertain a motion to allow for the proper process of disposal of the old Essex Fire Department ladder truck to the city of Beverly through the town administrator and the fire chief.
So moved.
If they choose to purchase it, correct?
Yes, and it doesn't have to
Second.
be, it doesn't have to be a purchase. Because of the way this process works, it could be for $0. It doesn't sound like that's what Beverly wants to do, but I think they want to make us an offer, but I don't know whether that offer is going to be $10,000, $5,000, $100. I don't know what that looks
Okay.
like.
So moved.
And
Second,
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will entertain a motion to approve a request to appoint Jack Crompton to the position of probationary firefighter contingent upon successful completion of medical and Cory check.
So moved.
second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any items that we didn't know about?
Yes, the chief of police has looked into a program that could provide reimbursement of expenses to the town for people that attended the Bridge Academy. He has determined that there's one individual that would be eligible. Again, the money comes back to the town, not to the person. And he has provided to me an authorization form that if the chairman signs it, he would be able to apply for that reimbursement if there's funds left in the program. And I can have that ratified, I could bring that to your next meeting.
Are there any questions on this? Okay. So then you don't want a motion this evening. You want me to sign it tonight and ratify it the next? Okay.
Yep.
There's no problem with me signing it?
no, my only question, I guess, to BZ is, we saw it on Facebook. Was it, did it go out to any of the towns? I mean,
He was able to retrieve some information on it. I hadn't heard about it
So-
previous to that.
previously, right, okay, thank you.
So I guess what Alva's saying is, I wonder if we are not signed up with this Office of Grants and Research for municipal police training committees.
No, what I'm saying is, why didn't we know about it?
Well, you need to get on their like email list to know about different grants.
I will
like-
verify, I'll check with them to make sure they get on there.
Right. So when we get One Stop for Growth opportunities, Brendan gets them.
Right.
When we get, so any of those come in and we know about them. So that's the question is, why didn't they know?
Right.
Okay, see, I just didn't know what question to ask.
No, no. I was able to determine that from exactly what you said, Alva. You did great.
And then, thank you. The other thing is, Pam has put out a list of appointments that are remaining in a vacant state for the upcoming fiscal year. And one I wanted to point out, that we're looking to do a joint, a regional cable advisory committee for the renewal that's coming up. If you have any idea for someone who might want to serve on that, because Lisa O'Donnell was our representative, but she's not going to continue. And normally, the person that's serving as the 1623 studio representative from Essex would be the one that would help participate on the Regional Cable Advisory Committee. So I'm just putting that out there.
I'm just wondering, could you send us an email with that information? Because I think there's a couple of people I'd like to ask, but
That's
I
great.
want to be able to give them information to
Yeah.
say what it entails.
Yeah.
What does it entail?
Well, it's the board for 1623 Studios, so, what programming are they going after? What type of service do they, want to provide to the communities? For instance, 1623 is recording this meeting tonight and providing the staff to cover the meeting. So it's, they like to have somebody on their board from each of the communities to keep 1623 focused on what the communities need.
Yeah.
But yes, I'll send something.
And is it one representative from each community?
That's my understanding.
Do they decide amongst themselves what the programming should be, or does each person do it for their own town?
I believe what 1623 does is offered to all of its subscribers. I don't know that there's a specific channel for each town, I think,
Okay.
so.
Sorry, Ruth, I interrupted you there.
No, that's okay. I was going to ask, so I know that Lisa is still serving on the 1623 Studios board. So is she no longer going to serve on that board? Is her
My understanding, and I did ask her, what's that?
She doesn't want to be reappointed.
Right.
She's been looking for someone.
Okay.
Right, and so, because I had asked her, hey, you're on the board, do you want to help us with the regional CAC? And she said, no, and here's why, so.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, so Brenda, that would be really great if we had a little snippet of what it entails so that then we can say, you know what, so-and-so would be perfect for that.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, perfect. The appointments are going to be a little bit choppy, so bear with me. I've reviewed this with Pam, so she knows what we're doing, but just for one moment. I will entertain a motion to approve the appointments, starting on page 2, with the CATA representative for 1 year, Gillian Frieden, and I'm going to take that to the bottom of that page, which is Finance Committee for 3 years, Ben Buttrick. I'm going to do these choppy, so I'm going to do them in little segments. So this first one is going to be page 2 from the CATA rep down to the Finance Committee rep.
So the whole list.
Just on that
on that
page, yes. So moved?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And you want me to do the next?
I'm not going to actually have you do fire department, so we're going to table all of page 3. So the entire fire department on page 3 will be tabled. We're going to flip over to page 4. We're going to table through where it says Erin Kirchner under firefighter EMT for 1 year. You can put a line. We're going to table all of that. So anything fire department related, tabled. Then I will entertain a motion to approve from the emergency management director for 1 year, Ramey Reeder, all the way to the bottom of town council for 1 year, KP Law, as listed on page 4.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the reason for that, just a side note, they're being tabled because some of the headings were not accurate.
okay,
So
right.
the cards just need to be redone so that they are accurate, and we'll bring that back on the 24th.
Gotcha.
Okay. Next, under licensing, discussion. Review rules regarding a restaurant's ability to add outdoor seating in light of the recent change in law that also includes takeout for mixed drinks. So I'm going to turn this over to Brendan, who's consumed all of this legal stuff from KP Law, and will give us a quick overview, and then we can discuss that.
So, the board at the end of the COVID rules that allowed an establishment to have temporary expanded outdoor seating, or what they call table service with alcohol. The board, at one point in time, there was a chance to continue to do that on a case-by-case basis or not allow it anymore. And once the board felt that the economic situation had improved, and certainly the pandemic with its restrictions had improved, the board said, we're gonna not move forward after a certain point to issue any more of these temporary outdoor dining expansions. So that would have left each of the establishments that wanted to continue to do it to come in for a permanent change in alteration of premises using that process. But recently, and that's what this agenda item is about, we have learned that the ABCC no longer will oversee the granting of this type of arrangement. And so if someone approaches the Board of Selectmen or the licensing board for a permanent arrangement of this type for outdoor seating.
When this is outdoor seating where alcohol is served.
Right.
Yeah.
Table service, they call it, that it's only up to the local board now. I know that the ability to do it just on a temporary basis, I believe, is foreclosed for everybody. This is now a concession by the state to say, well, it still has to go through a process, but we don't want to see it. It doesn't have to go to their review.
They already have an ABCC license, and now.
They want to now expand outside, right.
And so some of the situations we have here where they do have serving alcohol indoors, does that mean that can now walk outside to the,
Not without the local board allowing for the expansion of the area, which is an alteration of the premises. There are already some establishments that have outdoor table service, but that's already in their permanent license. And it's mostly people that have service like on a deck that's attached to the actual building.
okay,
There was a request by Woodman's to have, and you're going to see some license requests under that, to have this type of arrangement out in the grassy area. And the Board of Selectmen, as licensing commission, actually did approve it, but the ABCC did not. That's when the ABCC still had to see it and approve it.
Yeah.
Now, we've got this recent change, and we know that we're going to be having, Vita Bella is probably going to come forward to the board, probably at your next meeting, to ask for a permanent outdoor seating arrangement. We don't know exactly what it will look like yet, but they're going to ask about it. So now you have a situation where you said yes to one establishment, but they couldn't do it because it, at that time, needed ABCC approval. Now you have another one coming forward who doesn't need ABCC approval, and you probably will hear from the first establishment about, perhaps reconsidering, bring it back, and if they brought it back, would the board still be okay with it? Because it wouldn't have to go to that next level, so there would be no chance that it would be disapproved at the state level again. So this discussion is all about, kind of absorbing these rules. The other piece, by the way, was any establishment that can serve alcohol on site now has the ability, without asking the board, to package mixed drinks for takeout as long as they're in a sealed container. So they can,
Themselves, without food,
No, they have
no,
to
it
have food.
has to be sold with food,
with food.
but they can now, people can now come pick up their food, and they can pick up their drinks sealed and bring them home and consume them at home.
Can they eat in the restaurant and then get drinks to go and not food to
So
go?
they already had that, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
Like,
covered
if you bought a
here.
bottle of wine at a local restaurant, but you only drank half of it, they used to have a sealing process so that you could take that bottle of wine home with you.
Yeah.
They'd cork it, they'd put it in a plastic bag, they'd
Right,
tape it over,
right.
so that, you paid for it, you could take it home.
Yeah. Some towns, I don't know if it was everywhere.
Well, it was here, because the village did it when I used to hang out at the village. I will say that this part here, this taking out of mixed drinks, is kind of scary to me,
But it's allowed.
but
so
it's allowed.
What it says here is the licensed establishments may now sell mixed drinks allowed under their type and category of license, provided that they are, 1, sold with a food order, and 2, in sealed containers. It doesn't say that the
Yeah.
food order is a takeout order, so that's,
Right.
I'm sure this is going to continue to evolve.
Yeah.
It's quite new. But, so that was the other piece. But the piece about approval of the outdoor dining, it's a good chance for the board to discuss it in advance, because you're going to have someone asking about it, and you might have another establishment come back to you to revisit it.
I wonder if we should set up our rules and regulations before we approve anything.
Well, so we do have, so
What we did for Woodman's.
what we did for
Yeah.
Woodman's, and I want to kind of bring Alva into the loop a little bit because she's only been on the board for a little over a year and doesn't remember when we went to do the permanent alteration of premises. So, Alva, just so you know, Woodman's had approached the town administrator and said, we'd like to make the grass area where they've been putting picnic tables for a lot of years and serving food out there, we'd like to serve alcohol. During the pandemic, when we were able to do it, it was very successful, and would like to do it. So they came to us, and we didn't necessarily see any sort of a problem with it because they had been doing it successfully through the pandemic. But I was approached by the building inspector who said, whoa, 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 before you go and make decisions, you really need to bring in inspectional services. You can't just decide that, sure, they can have alcohol. He's like, this changes a lot of different things. Like, we need to be sure that there's, proper lighting, proper parking, proper stuff. And I don't remember what all of his list was, but then that was fine. We said, okay, we need to bring the building inspector into the fold. And then we heard from the DPW superintendent who said, whoa, 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 we need to make sure that there's proper sewer flow. Like, you can't just automatically approve things without bringing us into the fold. So as this process unfolded, it was a learning experience with each meeting. And as somebody would hear that another inspectional service was involved, it started to unfold where we said, okay, we need to hit the brakes. We need to get all the departments on board, because then the Conservation Commission said, well, when are we getting our day in court? So finally we said to the applicant, we're going about this the wrong way. You need to go to all of the departments. So we gave them a list. You need to go to Board of Health and make sure that you can serve the food outside. You need to go to the plumbing inspector and make sure that you have the appropriate number of bathrooms. You need to go to the fire chief and make sure there's no fire-related, do you need fire alarms? What do you need? Police department, just from a safety standpoint, building inspector. So it came down to they had all of the parking in the world that they needed. That wasn't a problem. They didn't need any sort of fire suppression. The things that
They had the
worked.
wastewater flow.
They had the wastewater flow, so the increased seats wasn't a problem. The things that were a problem was the Conservation Commission wanted some sort of a fence that would grab any sort of trash before it would go into the river or the marsh. The building inspector wanted some sort of a fence along the parking lot that would segregate the grass from the parking so that you couldn't just freely flow from anywhere on the grass right into the parking lot, which would allow them to like take a drink, get into a car, go away. They wanted some sort of a clear passage.
Which they had during COVID, didn't they? I'm pretty sure that
They could do anything.
Yeah, I don't remember if they had a fence. They might have had like a snow fence.
I think they set up a
like
temporary
snow
fence.
And then the building inspector, I don't remember if it was building inspector or the police department, but somebody wanted a crosswalk. So some sort of something identified as a crosswalk to go from the building to the grass. So that as cars, because it's a, dangerous parking lot where cars are coming through, where pedestrians are going to walk. So they were going to paint just like a crosswalk, just with paint, something to identify that that is a walking path and to be careful. And then I mentioned, so then the plumbing inspector said, well, in an area where you're serving food and drinks, you have to have a hand wash station, you have to have running water, potable water, and you're going to be serving the alcohol there. So they were going to do some sort of a bar outside and bathrooms with it. So the reason for the bathrooms is plumbing code dictates that for so many seats in a restaurant, it's for 30 female seats, you need a bathroom. For 60 male seats or male patrons, you need a bathroom. So it's 30 and 60 is a
They have to
split.
be within certain distance.
Certain distance, so they had to be within 300 feet of the location. So because they were so far away, they needed to bring them out to basically the grassy area. So so that was the issue. So they had come to us and they agreed to all the terms of the crosswalk, the bathrooms, and the fence. And that was great. So we approved it with all of those things taking place, and then it went to the state. And when the state came out for the site visit, a representative of Woodman said, oh, we don't have any intentions of doing those things. We're not going to actually install the bathrooms. It's very, cost prohibitive, and we're not going to do those. So when the state heard that they weren't going to actually comply with what the local licensing authority approved, they denied it. So that was the reason for the denied request, was that.
Well, didn't they also have a concern about the sight line from the manager of the
Right.
restaurant?
Yes, there was a sightline issue, which was why one of the reasons they were going to have the bar outside was so that a manager could be at the bar to oversee the alcohol service. So that was another thing that they were going to do. So that was that one specifically, and I'm using that one because it was the only one that came before us as a permanent alteration, was approved at the local level, denied at the state level. This would take the state out of the process. So our approval would set the wheels in motion, except that it was approved with contingencies, so those things would still need to come into play. And while I've actually had a conversation with the plumbing inspector, and he wants me to send him all of this information from KP Law so he can read through it himself to see what's required. We may still want to say that maybe that's too strict, we want to change our mind, maybe we'll want to say we want to uphold that. However we want to proceed, I think it's still important to make sure that all of the departments that felt that they were due their day in court still get that. I mean, if we're on the river, so the Conservation Commission should be consulted. The building inspector has to be consulted. Police and fire are our public safety. Our Board of Health determines all of our food service stuff. She should be consulted. So, and then DPW, it's all seats and sewer flow. And we know from many different things that we see, everyone's records about seat count is kind of fluctuated here and there. We need to make sure that if somebody, and we're not.
Count as additional seats?
Yes, there are additional seats. So if you have a restaurant, and I'm not going to use a particular name. We'll use a brewery because I know those seats. The brewery has 228 seats. That's what they're allowed. If they bring another 80 seats behind Fin and Feather, that's 80 additional seats. But it's not just about the seats, right? So those are 80 seats. So we're talking sewer flow. We might need a town meeting vote. But they are required for those 228 seats that they're allowed, that's based on an occupancy limit. The 228 equals 52 parking spots. Now, so Woodman's is kind of, again, the unicorn in all this because they have more parking than they know what to do with. They have plenty of seats, they have plenty of sewer, so they're not the one that we're really talking about, it's all the other ones. You know, you have Rivers Bend that's limited to 98 seats because of the sprinkle. You have other, CKs, their seats that they have they're all accounted for inside the building. So then we run into the issue of, we don't want to get into the enforcement game of, well, I'll bring 30 seats from inside to outside because we have,
Weather,
when it's
yeah,
nice weather,
yeah.
because we have no way to control that. So on a rainy day, they're going to go in, but on a nice day, they're going to go out. But are they, and who's counting?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also with the fence, because to me, I'm thinking about that, I'm like, all right, it does have a fence so people don't die, but do they have a fence to stop napkins?
Right.
You know, all the times I sat at Shays,
Stuff blowing in.
things,
Yeah.
things would blow into the water.
So that was a Conservation Commission concern, was things blowing into the water. Equally, in fairness to Woodman's, they do have an employee that walks the property constantly, making sure that they're picking up
Correct.
stuff.
And they also have the high reeds that help to stop
To
it
stop
before it
things.
makes it.
So, but you can't, we know, once you set the precedent, everyone's going to say, well, you let them do that. So we need to be careful on how we move forward and what we want to do. I think we still need to consider what all of the different departments, boards and departments have to say, and we can't just make a blanket approval. But we need feedback from the whole board on what you think.
Yeah, I mean, and we can't just say, this is what the Conservation Commission is gonna look at, and this is what the building department, whatever, because each restaurant is different. And so it might be just, you have to go to these different places, and they'll tell you what you need, is what our recommendation would be.
Well, and the other thing is the enforcement.
Well,
They
that's-
say they're gonna have a bathroom and then you walk through and they don't have a bathroom. I mean,
Well, they would get approval by the building inspector, right, unless they put that in. They kinda have to do that.
Well, that would be the plumbing inspector, but if,
Plumbing inspector.
yeah, so, or building and plumbing, I don't know, but
Yeah,
and I think that if you did look at just Woodman's, like, to me, it's a takeout place. It's always a takeout place. So you put your order in, you go to the bathroom, you get your food, you go sit out under the tent. They've been doing that
forever.
forever.
right, so they want to bring alcohol back there,
They just want to bring alcohol back there.
right.
It's a tough one.
I mean, there's no reapplication in front of you. This is something they might consider.
Right.
This is just a discussion about the process. What are we going to do about this? Do we still want to make sure that all of the departments get, what always happens is we're always reactive instead of proactive. And we've always granted permission, and then we run into a kerfuffle where we say, oh, this doesn't seem bad, sure, what's an extra 40 seats? And then the sewer is going, wait a minute, you can't give them 40 seats, they need flow. So this is why we're talking about it, is what is our process? What do we want to do so that every single person, applicant comes in, we can hand them either, here are your 12 steps.
I kind of would like to see us join forces with all of those to say what's the limitations? Where do we stop? Because we could make decisions, but I don't know that without having them at the table to say, yes, that's what we want. Yes, that's,
No, I would think it would be just, you need a sign off from these people, this, and this. And if you get all those, then we're okay with it,
So, but Alva, what you're saying is you want a roundtable discussion with the building inspector, the fire chief, the police chief, the plumbing inspector, the electrical
or an
inspector.
executive briefing that shows everything, so that we all are understanding what it is indeed that we're looking to have done.
Well, I can pull together what each of those entities wants
Okay.
to see. Let's start with that.
But that's good.
Yeah. It's kind of like what Jody's supposed to be pulling together for,
The guide to doing business, yeah, when they open, what they need, right. So this will be, if they want a permanent alteration of premises, what do we want to see?
yeah.
And there are some that, may not be a problem. Somebody like Vita Bella, they're going to be coming before us. I don't know where they're, you're going to want to have a site plan. You're going to want to see it delineated. You want to know how far is it from the restaurant? Are they going to be all the way across the parking lot? I mean, that would,
Yeah, right.
or is it going to be right outside the door, and it may be a no-brainer, but it's still going to come down to sewer flow increase seats, which I know we saw that in an email, that it's not going to increase their seats
And
and
the
so
hard
on.
part is, they could ask for this, but then it could be like last year and it rained every
Sure,
4 days every week.
Absolutely.
And nobody's really going to be doing anything.
right. Well, the other thing we may want to consider, if we do consider this, I mean, we have guidance from the law, but if we do approve a permanent alteration of premises, we may want to say 1-year approval
Yeah, I
with a
was gonna say,
reevaluation to see if it's working, to see if the sewer department says to us, what's going on with our flow?
2-year approval in case it was an unusual year or whatever, just so
Sure.
that we get some data.
Well, I think I'd rather a 1-year approval that could be extended if it was a lousy weather year.
Well, right, but it also gives you 1 year of data to say, it also keeps people honest, right? It keeps them on their toes to make sure that they're following the rules, so that if they know that they're coming back in a year, and I'm not saying there's any sort of a fee, more just come before the board, let's talk about if we had any complaints, if there were any issues, whatever, and then we could grant it for an additional year or into perpetuity, whatever we want to do, but we may want to consider that as well.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
So you'll reach out to inspectional services and see what each department would want to see?
Yeah,
Okay.
I will.
Okay, so that's the discussion on that. Next on our agenda is the ratification of a one-day entertainment license. So it reads, Woodman's Inc., Douglas Woodman, for use on Wednesday, June 5th, 2024, between the hours of 4:30 p.m. and 7 p.m., within the confines of the Woodman's Grass in front of the Essex Room, 125 Main Street, non-amplified guitar player and vocalist. So just a little bit of background here. This was very specifically for the Greater Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce, small business person.
Did it say that on the actual application?
Non-amplified, yes.
It did,
Yes.
okay.
Because they originally turned it in as amplified, and I pointed out that doesn't meet the policy, and it's outside of a meeting, so you're going to have to come in with something that meets the policy. And they turned it back in as non-amplified.
Okay.
Oh, and that's actually not in here because we signed that outside of a meeting to give them the license. So, but because it is being ratified, it's on the agenda and it's on the table for discussion, which I think that this is.
It's ratification.
This is ratification, right? So this is a ratification of the 1 day. So just giving a little bit of context to why I'm discussing this. We received an email that it was a last-minute addition to that event, which was the Small Business Person Award. They didn't know that they had an opportunity for a guitarist. The request was specifically for non-amplified, and it was printed that way on the license. We were asked in an email, we all responded independently to the town administrator who collected those three, and we all approved it. So he brought it to us outside of a meeting, we all signed it, and it was clear that it was non-amplified. So the reason that I'm even having a lengthy discussion is that Alva and I were both in attendance to this event. It was an absolutely beautiful event that was put on by Woodman's and the Greater Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce, and would like to thank them for that. However, it was amplified. So we approved one thing and something else was done. And I had approached Maureen Woodman in the last hour of the event, and not honestly to even talk about the amplified music, just to say this is a lovely event, thank you for hosting. And she used some pretty derogatory words and said that the amplification was a curse word for me, because although that they've always been considered the poster child for everything, she's done playing by the rules. So she also informed me that going forward, they're going to be having music on Wednesdays in the grassy area, so on and so forth. There was it was an hour-long, or roughly an hour-long discussion that was not very nice, and, things admitted that were not being done by following rules. So this is in the past. I mean, I don't know whether we deny
And
ratifying
just
it.
to preface, I mean, when we got there, the guitarist was playing. It was lovely, right at the right tone. It was just a lovely little event from, I think it went on till from 4 to 6 or something, 5 to 7. But it wasn't like it was just a lovely gentleman singing. And it was amplified, but you didn't notice it. And but the approach was really bad of saying how, this was to you. I was shocked. And I will say that it concerns me with these additional licenses here, requests here that say non-amplified.
They don't say non-amplified, they don't say anything.
Yeah, they don't say anything.
That's what I was asking about. Yeah, they just say guitar.
They just say
player.
guitar player and vocalist. They don't say non-amplified or amplified. And it's, and obviously, we already saw that when the license says non-amplified, it doesn't matter.
Right. So because of that, I mean, it leads us to not approve.
Well, so I don't even know how you handle ratifying the one-day license. I mean, we're ratifying something that we didn't even approve, so I don't even know what you do.
Don't ratify it,
So we'll just leave it alone.
yeah?
Do you deny it?
No,
But we
you just
already
don't
signed
do
it.
anything.
You do nothing.
It's already done.
Okay.
And
By
I'll be
approving
honest,
it,
I would
you
have no
condone
problem approving these additional if they guarantee that the volume is going to be the same. But that would just be-
Amplified?
But you're also bringing it out of a different area, Alva. You're no longer in front of the function hall in that beautifully fenced-in area. You're now bringing it over on the river,
Or the grassy area.
or the grassy area of where the picnic tables are.
I'm not against music. And 6 to 8 on a Wednesday during the summer,
Was there any objections from across the way?
no, and I talked to somebody who's actually adjacent to the property, and they said it was lovely. We didn't even.
Yeah,
Lowland or whatever it is. over
I
there.
haven't heard from anybody that had any issues with it. Like Alva says, and I'll echo it, it was not offensive. It was quite nice. I think for me, that's not the point. Nice or not, it wasn't what we granted. It's all, it's not a bait and
How many
switch,
other
but,
things are gonna happen
right.
where
And,
they say one thing and then do, and regardless, whether it's them or somebody else across the street.
sure. So, but you're setting yourself up for, what does it matter what they vote on? We're not going to listen to it anyway.
So the
Without
first one
having,
is, the first real one is July 10th.
Yes, Wednesday, July 10th.
So there's plenty of time if we deny for them to rectify or clarify what's gonna happen.
I honestly thought that what I saw in the email had said acoustic.
Where's the application?
I have all the applications.
First one did.
They're not specific.
This one,
They just-
but none of those did on at least on the, what I saw.
And these are all just photocopied with a change of date. They
You know,
just-
these are hard because we don't want to become a Hampton Beach. At the same time, we don't want to
Stifle.
stifle the town from having, entertainment or the businesses from getting people in.
There's a question on the application, amplification, yes or no. Nothing is checked.
Okay, no, I thought I saw it in the email. Maybe I was looking at a different one.
Well, it's incomplete.
Okay, so we deny because it's incomplete?
You have,
So you could table them.
you're
So
not going to
instead of-
deny,
instead of
because if you deny, that sets up a public hearing. You could, are they all not
I'm
marked?
looking. They're all not marked.
Then we could contact them back and say, you have incomplete applications, you need to tell the board what it is you want to do, and they can take it up on the 24th.
Okay, I think that's probably the best way to go. Yeah, because if they were planning on not having amplified music and they just didn't check that, we don't want to deny it.
Right, they didn't say yes or no.
And
so-
we may approve it even if they do want amplified.
Okay, so we're going to table those until the applications are complete. I will entertain a motion to approve the two senior. Hold, please. My apologies. I will entertain a motion to approve the senior commercial shellfish permit for Gary Verga.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Under Personnel Board, I will entertain a motion to consider allowing Chief Paul Francis to carry over 80 hours of vacation into fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
Can we discuss?
Sure, we can, absolutely.
So, is it, like, can we put in a stipulation that they need to use it by a certain time period? Like, I hate to, is this gonna,
No, his contract actually allows him to carry up to 80 hours over, so it's written in his contract, but he has to come to the board to get it approved.
And he can use it whenever he wants.
That's right.
so, and does he have other 80 hours that are rolled over there that now he's up to?
No, so that would be the total.
You can only do 80.
Okay, just
Yeah.
checking.
In addition, so the other, well, there's another request, but that's a different person, that's not.
I see that,
Yeah.
and what I'm just trying to make sure is one of two things. One, come next May, 2 weeks are taken off for his end, his end of term before we're ready, or, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like,
if whatever an employee doesn't use while they're with us, once they retire, resign, leave us, you owe them that.
Get paid for it.
It's a property right.
What happened to Michael Ginn?
He didn't get his application back.
Okay.
So I just knew I hadn't reviewed it, so when I read that agenda item, I was like, oh, I didn't see that application, so we're going to cross him off until we get it back.
so I'll second it then?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So now this one, Alva, I'm going to also include a little discussion with the next one. So I will entertain a motion to consider allowing Sergeant Daniel Bruce to carry over 80 hours of vacation to fiscal year 2025. And my discussion on that is, this is actually the third year in a row that we've received a request for the 80 hours from both Chief Francis and Sergeant Bruce. No one else does this. They're the only two that are looking to continuously carry over the 80 hours. I know that in the past, it was stated to us, because we've asked these questions each year, and it was that because they're the Monday through Friday day shift, it's tough for them to take off time. So that's why they're looking to carry it over, and also because they've been shorthanded. They didn't have people to cover shifts, and that was part of the issue as well. So I'm hoping now that we're going to have Megan coming out of the full-time academy, Victor going into the full-time academy, we're now going to be a full staff again soon enough, that I hope that we won't see this on the agenda next year.
Yeah, 80 hours can be generated pretty quickly. you
Right.
know.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Reminders that the town offices will be closed on Wednesday, June 19th, 2024, in observance of Juneteenth holiday, and that the next regular Board of Selectmen's meeting will take place on Monday, June 24th, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the third-floor auditorium of Town Hall, 30 Martin Street. At this time, I invite public comment. There's nobody in the room with us this evening, so I'm going to turn to the phone. If there's anybody online with us, if you would please unmute yourself, identify yourself with your name and address, and I'm going to allow 2 minutes for public comment. Okay. I'm not seeing anybody unmute. I'm going to give it another 10 seconds.
Did anybody write anything? No? Okay.
No chance.
No.
Is there any board discussion or questions here?
I would just like to understand a little bit better in regards to the meeting, the agenda item for 6:15. You said more stuff, they're coming with more stuff. What?
No. I asked Brendan to speak with town council in regards to this particular item, which is Chris Lapointe from the Essex County Greenbelt, to discuss a proposed conservation restriction of 97 acres owned by the Penoyer family. And in doing some research, hold please. They're not here, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but I do have some research, so I'm going to tell you why I inquired with town council. Essex is 16 square miles, which is 9,200 acres, 220 of which are underwater, 3,435 of which are salt marsh. All acreage of salt marsh and water are considered protected under state law, which makes these areas constitute over 75% of the protected area space in Essex, which leaves 5,545 acres, of which MECT holds 1,775 acres, and it leaves a total of 3,770 acres available. So 59% of our town right now is protected. And that's just a high number. So once we heard our presentation and I kind of went into some of the research I was doing, which is available on our homepage under the open space plan, which is an awesome report, but it's 163 pages. So you have to kind of dive into it to get some of the statistics out of it. I didn't know how the board was going to feel about that conservation restriction, and I don't want to talk about how we feel right now. I did want to, however, have town council opine on what it would mean if, in fact, the board wasn't inclined to approve that. I don't know if it means that the restriction doesn't go through. I don't know if this is more just of a formality. So I wanted to understand that before we brought it before the board so that everyone here would understand what that meant if we got to that point. So keep your opinions to yourself till we actually hear a presentation and you take it all in and we can be prepared, but I wanted to have council's opinion on.
Say 59%, is that 59% of the non-private land, or is that 59% of the entire town, the 92,000?
Of the entire town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's why we tabled it. So Brendan did send an email to Chris with Greenbelt, who obviously didn't show up tonight with this presentation because we said that we were still looking for some more information.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Alva?
No.
Are you sure? Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:22 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Yes.